This is a Notan. This is the scene from which this Notan was taken. And this is a painting based on the Notan that was taken from the scene. So what is a Notan? Well, first of all, the word Notan is a Japanese word that means light, dark. There's lots that's been written on Notan. I will show you 2 books in case you want to research it further. This book, called Notan, the Dark Light Principle of Design, is one that gives you a good explanation and foundation of how the Japanese used the Notan. And then this one, really old book, but it was the first one that introduced Notan to the Western world. It's called Composition and Understanding Line, Notan, and Color by Arthur Wesley Dow. So if you want to really pursue Notan in depth, those 2 books I would recommend. But for our use, a Notan can be one of 2 things. It can be a small thumbnail study. So, and usually when we are approaching a subject, we might want to do a number of small thumbnail studies. It would take us only a minute. So what do we need for that? A small sketchbook like this. This is a little man. I think it's 6x6 sketchbook. That's good enough. It doesn't have to be a small one, but this is just very handy. Okay. And I'll just show you. See, these are very quick. The size of the Notan sketch is about 1 inch by 2 inches or something like that. You don't have to be exact about that. They're very quick. There are more. And just show you some examples, and there are more. And sometimes when you see a Notan sketch, you can tell what the subject is. You tell what it's going to be. Sometimes you can't. Why is that? It's because Notan is about shadow and light. Before I go into that, let me tell you that a good pen for doing the Notan is this one. This is called the Tombow pen. The black Tombow pen has a brush on one end, and it has a fine, or relatively fine tip, medium point sort of on the other end. That's an excellent pen for doing a quick Notan study. For doing that is basic, what we may say the everyday use of Notan. But then a very important use of Notan is in the painting process itself. So what are we doing when we're doing a Notan? What are we actually looking for? We're looking for shadow. When we do the study, the Notan study itself, we're looking for shadow. What's in shadow? What's not in shadow? Now, here is a composite of my painting, the original photo from which the painting was taken, and the Notan. Now, if you look at that Notan really carefully, you'll see that the dark in the Notan is defining the shadows that you see in the photograph. There is no reference there to water, and there are really no references there to trees. You might make out a tree or 2 here or there, but the focus is on the shadow. Where is shadow? That's what you do in the black side, in the black part of the Notan, and that's all you do, because the white then remains what's not in shadow. And so why do we need this? Why do we need Notan? Well, it gives us a foundation for developing our paintings so that we can keep the light and shadow in relationship to each other, so that they work together, and so we are able to keep the colors, the shadow colors in shadow and the light colors in light. It makes for just a much stronger painting. I'd like to show you now how we go about doing a Notan sketch. First of all, I have here a 10 value scale, a 10 unit value scale. This is one that I developed myself, and this is available free for all who download this video. So what I have here, I've taken the values that fall into shadow, their values 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. The values that are not in shadow are 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then, when I set up the palette, I set the palette up with lines of color that fall into these value ranges. By doing this, by setting the palette up like this, then I don't have to think and try to figure out where I am when I'm actually translating the Notan into a painting itself. So I'd like to show you now the steps that we go through to do a painting based on Notan. I've already got a preliminary drawing here. The steps are the same as the steps for doing any study. First of all, in order to do a Notan painting, you need to have, you need to read the colors of the subject you're working with. Now, I'm choosing the subject of this fishing boat, this wooden fishing boat in water. I want to keep this very simple, keep the subject very simple to make this easier for you to comprehend. So, I've chosen this subject. Now, what I see is the colors I'm going to need are going to be kind of in the orange range and in the blue range. So I know that the colors on my palette, I have the Rembrandt version of Transparent Oxide Red, which is sort of a red-orange. I see lots of that in the wood of this boat. And I see as it gets lighter, it gets more gold. And I know that mixing Hansa Yellow Light with Transparent Oxide Red gives me these variations in gold as it gets lighter. And so I've chosen then Hansa Yellow Light to mix with that to get this value line that can show me the degrees of orange I'm seeing in that boat. The other thing I'm seeing is blue. Blue of the water, blue of the sky. So I chose, I'm seeing variations of blue. Some of the blues tend to be a little bit greener, and some of them tend to be a little bit, lean a little bit more towards purple. So I've chosen a blue that can be manipulated to do either of those things. This is Ultramarine Blue, and I've developed a value line of the Ultramarine Blue that goes from blue to, shall I say, from dark to middle to light with titanium white right here. So that's what I call a value line of color. I find creating a value line of color very helpful. So in order to set up a painting from which a Notan is the foundation, I know that when I'm working on the shadow side, right here, when I'm working on the shadow side, I'm working right in here. That's this area here in the on the value scale. When I'm working on the light side, where it's not in shadow, that's this side over here, and over here, that's the value of the scale. So if it's not in shadow, it's somewhere in here. Could be the darker version of not in shadow. Could be the lighter version of not in shadow. It'd be somewhere right in here. That's what we read as artists. When it's in shadow, it'll be right over here. So it's going to be, it could be a lighter version of the shadow, or it could be a darker version of the shadow. So that's what we're going to do, show you how we translate, first of all, how we create a Notan, and then how we translate a Notan into painting. So the first thing we do then, as I said before, is you decide on the color and you set up the palette. Getting back to that. And why do I have this yellow here? Well, just in case I need to turn this the blue line or change the blue to be just a little bit more of a greenish blue. That's there just in case. So that's step one. Step two is to do a preliminary drawing. I've already got the preliminary drawing done here. I did that to save a little time. What I want to emphasize about preliminary drawing is that it's done freehand. Don't cheat yourself by projecting a drawing and tracing your projection. That gets you nowhere. That teaches you nothing. It puts an image there and make people think that you know how to draw that image, but it's not going to help you at all as far as your being an artist goes. It's better to learn how to do a preliminary drawing, do it freely, don't try to make it perfect, do it freely, and do it by discovering where those lines are and where to place them in space. So the next step then is Notan. Once you get the preliminary drawing, then this is Notan, which is what this lesson is about. So to do the Notan, we can choose a brush. It doesn't matter what kind of brush it is. It's just a brush that's going to give us good coverage. I think I'm going to need a flat brush for this. I'm going to go a little bit different there. Just choose this flat brush. And it hardly matters, as long as you use a dark color for the underpainting of Notan, it hardly matters whether you use, which of these colors you use. I'm going to choose the blue this time. And it needs to be not quite that wet, but it needs to be sort of thin. It's just going to be a little foundation, so it needs to be kind of thin. I'm using mineral spirits here. This is Turpenoid brand of refined mineral spirits. So I added just a little bit of mineral spirits right here to just the edge of this transparent color of Ultramarine Blue. So what we'll do, we're going to start looking for shadow. We're ignoring boat. We're ignoring water. We're ignoring anything except shadow. Our subject is shadow. At this moment, in this time, our subject is shadow. Where do I see shadow? I see shadow here. I see shadow. I see shadow here. I see shadow here. Shadow here, 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 here. So I don't separate this shape from this shape. We're not looking at shape. We're not defining shape. We're defining shadow. Which is a good reason to have, if you have a preliminary drawing done ahead of time, if you need that shape, which you're probably not going to need it, but if you do need that shape, you'll have a little indication there, or you can always put it back. So, alright, so I see shadow. I see shadow going to here. Shadow, shadow, shadow. Okay, what's happening right over there? There's a little bit of reflected light. Some of that goes kind of into shadow. I'm going to indicate shadow here, and then stuff that starts getting hit with light. There's shadow right in here, and then shadow comes straight down here. No, that doesn't get to be a separate shape. It's a shadow shape. A shadow shape has nothing to do with the shape of the subject. So this is a shadow. So this comes straight down. It joins this and becomes part of that shadow shape. Yes, all this is in shadow. Shadow, 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 shadow. In fact, there's very little light, very little not in shadow in there. There's a little bit of shadow right there. Shadow here, 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 here. Come on, shadow. There we go. Okay. More shadow. And that shadow comes right down into the water. And there's shadow right here. Now we have reflection. There's difference between reflection and shadow. Boats sitting on water will cause a shadow on the opposite side of the direction of the sun. There'll be a shadow there. And there might be a little bit of reflection in there too, but we look for shadow. So that shadow the shadow of the boat is extending right over into here. And that shadow is coming, let's see, there's a little bit of shadow there inside that reflection. It's coming on down, the shadow on the water there. One really good way to read shadow is to squint. Just simply squint. It's a little gift that God gave us that we don't use very often as artists, but it's one of our best gifts, and it's free. Squint. Just squint. Shadow. There's shadow here, inside. There's some shadow inside there. Shadow here, inside. A little shadow in there. Shadow. There's a shadow right back in there. Shadow, 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 shadow. Oh, okay. I'm going to kind of ignore these long things for the time being, because I may ignore them forever, because I'm concerned with teaching the Notan, not about boats. All right, so there's shadow here. Now, what's happening in that water is that the waves are creating shadow. Where the waves turn away from the light, we have shadow. Where we see the surface, the light is reflecting on the surface, we have light. So we have shadow. We have shadow here, within that inside of that wave that's back there. We have shadow here, and we have little patterns of shadow in here. We have continued patterns of shadow. Shadow here, and here. Now watch that. That pattern takes on the movement of the water. So you don't have to worry about that. Just look at the shadow, and just get those shadow patterns in, and you will have the movement of the water. So we've got, there's some little shadow patterns going all the way back, right back in here. You see those little shadow patterns, and even in the distance, even in the distance there, we're going to see, we see some shadow. We see some shadow in the distance there, and we see kind of alternating between shadow and not in shadow as it comes down. So the shadow in here, here, here. Now, what do we have? We have a Notan. There we are. Shadow, not in shadow. In the sky, we could, some of those clouds, if we really wanted to get specific, some of the bottoms of the clouds are in shadow. So that too would end up being a part of the Notan. All right, so and I think that pretty much. Now the next step then would be to step back and to look, squint at your Notan, and then compare it to the subject and look just for shadows. See, did you miss anything? Did I miss anything? That's what I'm looking at right now. I think I pretty much did already locate the Notan, that boat. So now we have it. We have the shadow. We've located the shadow, and we have where it's not in shadow. So then the next step is to interpret this into a painting. The best procedure to follow when we're interpreting a Notan, you know what? The best procedure to follow in any painting is to start with the darks first. For the most part, sometimes that we would find reasons not to start with the darks first, but that's just a good way to go. Now, let's be very, I'm going to be very general about this. I'm presenting this as a study of how to interpret or how to translate a Notan into a painting. So I'm not intending to do a finished painting here. I'm intending to present this to you as simply a study of how this works. I'm going to begin then in the shadow areas. I'll begin right in here. This seems to be an interesting place to begin. So what I'll do, I look in the value area of the shadow. What value of the Notan side of the shadow? What value is this? What am I looking at? And so if I refer back to my value scale here, just put this right down here. Let's just let it sit there. Now I refer to the shadow side. I know if it's in shadow, it's going to be one of these values. So it seems to me that it might be about right here, about value 8. Now, sometimes I think I might see, and a photograph might record value 9 and value 10, and we painters need to be careful about that, because too much value 9 and 10, especially 10, looks like a black hole in the painting itself. And we need to be careful about that, so it's better to start out with it maybe just a little bit lighter than we actually see it, and then we can adjust it as we move along. Alright, so what color am I looking at? This is kind of the blue of the ocean is reflecting onto the orange, and so I'm seeing a combination of orange and blue. I'm going to start right in here. Right in here with a combination, and I'm starting into this sort of value 8 area, and I'll simply stroke that in. Just a very broad stroke. I'm not trying to put in details yet, so I'm just going right over the window areas, stroke that in. And I'm seeing some of that above here too. So I'll stroke that in. I'm going to switch brushes. This is this is an oval brush. We have lots of angles and stuff there. This is a fill brush. It's not going to give me the edges that I need, the flat edges I need. So I'm going to go to a flat brush. That's an important thing too. We use the shape of the brush that better enables us to put the shape to develop the shape we're trying to make. All right. So what's going on here inside that boat? Well, the boat, same thing. It's really a very similar thing, maybe a little bit darker and maybe a little cooler. So I'm going to stroke that inside the boat, just in the shadow area. And I'm losing that shape, you see, between the two. Then we have some junk there in front, so I won't, I'll just leave that. Okay, so if I go around over here to the other side, inside that, I guess that's called the hull of the boat. That seems to be getting a little bit bluer. So we'll just do that in the shadow area. All right, there we go. That takes care of that. This is light. This is collecting not in shadow. That's not in shadow. I'm not going to touch that right now. I'll get that later. Okay, what's happening in here? Oh, we have some interesting things happening in there. We have some within the shadow. We have some colors reflecting, or some of the water is reflecting back onto the boat itself. So look what's happening. Even though we know that's a wooden boat, what we're seeing back here is we're seeing blue of the water reflecting onto it. So take it like that, and we're still going into that. We're still in that value. We're still in that the shadow value area. So we're like right in here, and it gets a little bit begins to get more warm. You see it. You can see that blue on the boat, and you can actually see it. It's getting warmer, getting more what you might call brown. I call it low value orange. That's artist talk. And as we are coming towards the front, we're seeing that that's getting that's staying brown. Boy, look what we're seeing there. We're seeing some of that wonderful gold that goes up in, almost goes up into that near value 6 right here. And it sort of does this, doesn't it? Let's get a little bit more of that. Okay. And then the front part kind of turns back. It gets a little bit darker, so that goes back into the value 8-ish. Learning to read the values within the shadow area and within the not in shadow area will go a long way toward enriching the interpretation of your paintings. Okay, now we've got that. We have a little bit of in shadow right here, right there. Oops, that was way too dark. I'll fix that. No problem. Just do this. Okay, that's better. Now we continue working on the shadow as we move into the water. Right here, I'm going to move right in here. Now that's sort of nondescript, and that's really dark. I'm going to move up into the value 7 to 8 area. We have the color of the water, and we have the color of the ship reflecting, or color of the boat reflecting into the water. So I'm doing that. And as we get, as we move down here, we still have that. We have the water, and we have the boat. And see, all that kind of merges in together into our vision of shadow. But see, I'm still staying within those shadow areas, just the shadow areas. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And we look into those shadow areas of the water, and we see that they turn sort of warm. Dark warm. So I'm just pushing the brush. Now when you push the brush up like that, you create that kind of ragged edge like you see at the edge of the wave in the ocean as it turns. And so I'll just do that. Remember, this is just block in. So the block in is the first pass that you make of any painting. So when you're doing the block in, you're just putting in the major value areas and the major color areas. You're not trying to define details. So you don't define these details as you go. The first pass that we're doing right now, just the first pass, is just the block in. So we're not concerned with details. That's what that was all about. Right, boomy boom. Now let's go back up here and visit shadow area up here, and we have a little bit of shadow area right there that I had indicated, and here, and back in the distance there of those windows. I'll go ahead and just block that in we'll come back to that and refine it later, like I talked about just a minute ago. There we go, there, and there, and there, and there, boom, 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 boom. Okay, all this is light in light. This is, I mean, it's called not in light. That's not good. It's easier to understand if you say shadow, not in shadow. Shadow, not in shadow. Instead of say in shadow, in light, that's a little bit too broad for the interpretation of Notan. So we'll just say shadow, not in shadow. Okay, as we move into the distance here, within that shadow area, these shadows that we see within the wave get lighter. Now they're a little bit darker towards the front here, boom, boom, like that. But then they go towards the center. I may need to pull. There we go. Now they'll get lighter. Lighter as they go into distance, but they're still shadow areas. All right. Same thing over here. Lighter as they go into distance, but they're still shadow area. Okay. There we go. And let's just kind of let that go right through the boat, and let's put a few right here. And all right. The clouds in the sky. See, I'm dressing all the shadow areas before I move on to the light. Clouds in the sky seem very light. They're about a value. You may see they're kind of transition value. They're darker than you think they are. I'm going to go into the Ultramarine Blue. They are grayer, so I'm going to pull a little bit of the transparent oxide red down into that. And I might need, let's see if I can do that with transparent oxide red, a little bit more white. There we go. That's probably what we need. Now, I'm looking at something here. My palette is a value 5, or it's about right in here. So I know that when I see a color mixed against the palette, if it's lighter than the value of the palette, I know I'm in the not in shadow colors. If it's the color of the palette or darker, I know I'm within the in shadow colors. So that makes it easier when you work on a value, a middle valued, call it, palette. It makes it easier to see those things. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of stroke that, stroke those clouds in up there, and then that. Now let's bring it down just a little bit like that. That would. All right, now we have translated all the shadows into their colors, into their range of values as we saw them, as we were able to read that color. Now we're going to move to the not in shadow colors. I have to rinse the brush out really good, get all those darker colors out of it, because here's where we're going to be. Not in shadow. Not in shadow. This is where we'll be working right in here, but not in shadow. And so, where to begin? It doesn't matter where we begin. We can begin at just about anywhere. I think I'll just begin at the bottom and work my way up. So now, hope I haven't contaminated my colors too much. Let's see what we got. Let's see if we go here, here, here. I guess maybe my arm might be in the way of the camera there. Let's see if I can do something about that. Need to get that a little bit. Put it up, put it up, put it up, and put it up here. And while I'm in there, why not just go ahead, and get these. That it's lighter right here and gets a little darker as it goes around, so I need to show that. And so it's lighter right in there, and then as it reaches around in here, it gets a little bit darker. There we go, right there, and that blends in. Now we got a transition area there where it blends in, and it blends in right here. Now I'm going to jump into the shadow area just a moment here and reach into that shadow color to bring in for that hull. Is that what it's called, the front of the boat? I have to be careful because I don't really understand boat language. I do enjoy boats, but I don't understand the language. So, all right, so that defines that pretty good for our block in. I'm going to go in now. Here's a good place to begin to move into the using a little bit of white kind of dull the intensity of the color of wood we see there. Right here, now we're seeing all this is not in shadow. So I'm going to pull a little bit of the bluer into that. Tell you what, here's something that you might have to do when you're in the midst of something. You might have to mix another value line of color if you define to see a color that you need. I need a value line of that transparent oxide red, and so I'm going to quickly develop a value line here, and I'll show you why I need that. Okay. It's good right there. It doesn't have to be thoroughly mixed. So I'm going to rinse this out of the brush. What's happening was that was getting too green, and I needed it to be I needed it to be more neutral. It's a neutral color of wood. So you'll get back up in here. Now I'll come down. If it's getting too green, red is a complement of green, so that would help neutralize it. So I'm coming right here. That's more what I'm looking for right there. Let's get that a little bit more, a little bit lighter. There we go. That's more of what I'm looking for. And let's do the same thing right here. Now this is a very broad brush. I wanted to keep that broad brush because I wanted to keep it general. So this is just kind of a guesstimation. There we go. Bang, bang, boom. And let's get just a little bit more of this red. And some tiny little shadow areas there that we need to recognize, acknowledge. All right. Let's go back into just this area. The boat that is actually a little bit less. You see less of the wood, so you see that. Let's see, this is shadow, this is shadow. I neglected that. Let's get that. I'm going to jump back into the shadow for just a moment here and go back into the shadow blue area and define this and the inside here. Okay, and I'm going to go back into, we have a kind of a bouncing back and forth of light and shadow. Whatever that stuff is, it's gear of some sort. You don't have to know what it is to paint it. So I'm just going to kind of, wing it a little bit there. All right, now I'm going to start with this. I'm going to start with the sky and come down now. So the sky is not in shadow. Only the clouds are in shadow. So I'm going to go into the not in shadow. It seems like, let's see here. Yes, about a value 2 to 3. In fact, the sky, it actually gets, sky gets lighter as it gets closer to the horizon. Now here's where I'm going to use this yellow to show, because that blue of the sky is a little bit more of a warmer blue. Let's see that. There we go. I'm just going to very quickly. That ends up being darker than I want it to be. Well, it's actually darker than those clouds. So I'm just going to get that in quickly. I'll put those clouds back in. I just want to indicate that quickly. Now the reason I wanted to do the sky before I went back in and finish the water area, is because the light we see reflecting on the water, not in shadow, the light we see reflecting on the water is the same, it's this color that we see in the sky. Remember, we're still blocking in. Let's see. Okay, kind of get those clouds. They're kind of wispy. You don't see. you don't, you hardly see them. Very light, very wispy. So, and that not that important to the whole study of Notan anyway. So then what we'll do is we'll take this color, the same color of the sky. We'll take this color in the same light, not in shadow value, and we'll begin to define the not in shadow of the water. And even here. Let's see if I can squeeze that in. The brush is a little bit big for that area, but I don't want to switch brushes. So I'm just going to see if I can squeeze that in here. And I also want to squeeze it in over there. I don't want to forget that. I think I'll go ahead and do that now. It's in the shadow area. So, I'll just right here. That was a little overdone, but we won't worry about it. Okay, then that kind of, glad I didn't forget that. That would have been awful. I'm gonna rinse the brush a little bit now because I want to get that darker out. Going back into the light, or the not in shadow of the water, and quickly, not in shadow. The sky color reflecting on the water. That serves two purposes. One, we are recording what we are observing in nature, but it serves a compositional purpose too, and that is it helps unify the colors in the painting. It helps lead the eye. When you have this single color here and then moving around throughout the scene, it helps to unify, helps to keep the eye moving in the whole painting. So I'm going to quickly throw this in. All right, now I'm going to pay attention to the shapes of that movement here. Try to stay as close as I can to this into the movement of the water. This is getting darker, and in fact that's in shadow. This area is right in shadow. I almost missed that. Okay, let me get that back in shadow. So what we're seeing here with the movement of the water is actually the movement is reflecting the shadow color of the boat. It's in there. That's what it's picking up instead of the sky in there. So I'm going to go back into about value. This is about a value 5. Okay, that's beginning to kind of lose that. And keep that. No, it's not value 5. Let me get that towards value 5. Let's see if this is going to work. Let's run it in here to the value 5 in there. That's better. Okay, so let's do this. Now you see, we have it within the shadow value, and yet we have that the color of the boat reflecting. I want to get just a little bit more of that right in here. I might not see it, but I'll put it there just the same. Here's the thing too, when you're using this method, we artists are not cameras. I have no desire to be a camera, not to try to reproduce. The thing that makes being an artist fun is to being able to interpret what we're seeing, to create an interpretation, not just a copy. So this enables us to do that. We can revise wherever we want to revise when we're painting. By doing that, we're emphasizing what we want the viewer to see in the way we want the viewer to see it as artists, and that's part of what our creativity is all about. Okay, now let me see if I can be a little bit okay. And then what do we still have not in shadow back in here. Let's get that a little bit better. And this does begin to fall. This falls into that kind of transition. This is kind of transition value of color right in here. And let me see now, what have we got as far as a study, and as far as a you might call it kind of it's almost a block in of what we see. And let me stand back and see what we've got. Have I missed anything? Okay, we have all those details. If it's just killing you, all those details, the flag, I don't know what those things are pointing up in the sky, all those long things. And you might say, well, there's a fishing boat's got to have those things. Well, okay, you put them there. I may put one or two in just to, you know, satisfy those people who've got to have it. Let's see, so this would go, that's in shadow, that pole, whatever it is, and I know people who are boat experts out there are getting ready to write me an email. And that's okay. You don't have to know what it is to paint it. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of just put an indication of that, and that has a chimney. Oh, does that have one? Anyway. Alright, so then you get too much of that kind of stuff going on, you kind of mess up. From this point of the study, from this point you begin to put in the details. You begin, I'm just going to kind of indicate little things in here just to please those that might be asking for it, that's all. What was I saying? Yeah. Yeah. When you're doing a study like this, the details, these kinds of details of things become unimportant. What's important is what you're trying to learn or discover within the study itself. And I don't like what I just did there, so yeah, let's just get rid of that. And you say, oh gosh, what a mess. Well, yes, what a mess. Here we go. Put it in, take it out. It's paint. I'll just create a little cloud with that. Okay. Okay. All right, let's do just a small recap of what we were doing. Our purpose here was to introduce and explain and show you how Notan can work for you to help you create better paintings. So the process of using Notan is very simple. Same process you would use for doing any kind of study, where you first of all you set up your palette according to the colors you're seeing. You do a preliminary drawing. Then you do the Notan. What are you doing there? You're looking just for shadow. You're just taking a single value and exploring shadow, only shadow. And then that gives you a foundation for setting up accurate colors within that shadow area. So that's what we were doing with this particular lesson and video. And what I want to say here is that this approach to teaching painting is typical of the approach we're using in all the videos that we're making and producing every week, and available at DianneMize.com. My purpose for doing these is to make art theory come alive. Art theory seems to be pushed on the back shelf for so many people. Composition, the way composition works, and what can make the things that can make composition exciting and can cause composition to enable us to be more expressive in our work. I think of composition as being the heartbeat of painting. And so what I'm doing in all of these videos is taking one tiny element of composition and exploring it, trying to break it down for you and exploring it in depth. My intention is not to do completed paintings, but we're doing studies where we explore these things, these various ideas, to see how we can make them work. My intention is that if you do these studies, then you will enrich all of your paintings. You won't be just making a single painting of a single subject, but you will be giving yourselves tools to enrich all your paintings. So I invite you to go take a look at our videos in our video store and see, keep an eye on every week as we add more videos to them. And as I always say, keep in mind that your creativity is only limited by the limits you put on it yourself. Enjoy.